My name's Evan. I'm 33. And if there's one lesson life has taught me again and again, it's that being the responsible one comes with a price. I've never been the favorite, never the golden child, never the lovable wild card who causes a scene and somehow gets a pass. I'm the one who has it together, as my mom likes to say, which seems to translate to, I'm the one who pays. Birthdays, graduations, school expenses, vet bills, even the time the heating system broke. I've been the invisible glue holding this tangled family of mine from falling apart for years. My sister Madison is 6 years younger than me, beautiful, poised, and terrifyingly good at crying on cue. The kind of girl who can make "I didn't ask to be born" sound like poetry and still walk away with your credit card and an apology. She got engaged last spring to a guy named Chase, who seems less like a person and more like a mannequin that came to life and learned how to talk about crypto and CrossFit. I never liked him, and I never pretended to. But Madison did what Madison always does, wrapped herself in need and sentimentality, called me the only one I trust, and then casually mentioned how she'd found the perfect engagement party venue. She just needed someone to front the cost until she and Chase got their finances situated. I should have said no. God, I should have said no. But she sent me a text with a screenshot of her dream dress, some Pinterest board filled with candlelit centerpieces, and a picture of us as kids holding sparklers in our backyard. "You've always been there for me," she wrote. "Please, just help me make this perfect." So I said yes. I paid the deposit for the venue, an obnoxiously expensive garden villa with champagne fountains and a harpist, and gave the manager my card to keep on file for the remaining balance. I wasn't thrilled, but I figured I'd grin and bear it. Keep the peace. Be the dependable one. The day of the party, I showed up with a smile plastered on my face and a Tiffany blue gift bag in hand. Inside was a limited edition pearl and diamond bracelet, something Madison had once mentioned in passing after spotting it on a celebrity's wrist. It was wildly out of budget, but I bought it anyway because I thought maybe, just maybe, for once, she'd look at me and see more than a walking ATM. I should have known better. I stepped through the garden archway into the party, expecting maybe a hug or even a thank you. Instead, I barely got 2 steps in before Madison rushed up in her designer heels, gave me the fastest air kiss in history, then leaned in and whispered, "Hey, when we take photos, can you just, stand a little to the side? You kind of throw off the aesthetic." I blinked at her, thinking she was joking, but she was already gone, sashaying back toward a photographer and a group of perfectly filtered friends, each of them wearing muted tones that matched the hydrangeas. I was in a navy shirt and charcoal pants, clean, ironed, and objectively appropriate, but apparently not soft enough for the whimsical luxe vibe she was going for. Before I could process that slap in the face, my mom walked by, glanced at my face, and muttered, "Try not to make this about you for once, Evan." It's her day. That's her favorite line. I could have been on fire and she'd still hiss that at me for asking where the extinguisher was. She didn't stop walking. I turned around and saw the seating chart, little gold calligraphy tags delicately pinned to an ornate frame, my name buried in the lower left corner under miscellaneous. Table 9. I walked over. Table 9 was 2 toddlers, a couple of folding chairs, one of which had a jagged crack running through the middle, and a high chair with a suspiciously sticky tray. I looked up. Across the lawn was the main table, cream linens, rose gold flatware, and the important guests, my sister's fiancé's friends, her in-laws, my mom, my aunt, even my younger cousin Ashley had a seat there. But not me. I was the one who paid for the damn thing, and I got seated next to a toddler who screamed whenever someone touched her juice box. Still, I stayed quiet. I stayed calm. I set the gift down on the designated table and poured myself a glass of water from the pitcher meant for the kids' table. Toasted with it when they raised their flutes, watched from the side when Madison and Chase had their first dance to a song so overused it made me wince. I smiled politely when people asked if I was the photographer or the valet or someone's date who bailed. The final straw? It wasn't one big moment. It was the slow, steady drip of being erased, being useful, but invisible. I stood behind a hedge near the edge of the tinted dance floor, half listening as my mom joked to one of Chase's relatives that she was surprised Evan even showed up. He usually finds some excuse not to be part of things. I'd moved heaven and earth to be there, rearranged work, canceled a weekend trip, bought the bracelet, paid for the venue, and I'd done it because, for some reason I still can't fully explain, I thought it might matter. So I smiled, walked over to the venue manager with a calm that even surprised me. Pulled the envelope I prepared from my jacket pocket. Inside was a formal cancellation of my card authorization for the remaining party balance, along with a note explaining that I would not be covering any further charges for the event effective immediately. Legally, they had to inform the party host the moment the authorization was pulled, and I knew they would arrive after the cake was cut right when it was too late to stop the celebration from unraveling. I left before the chaos started, slipped out the side gate, walked to my car, and sat there for a long moment before turning the key in the ignition. I didn't feel victorious. Not yet. I just felt still, like I'd finally stopped swimming against a current that was never going to let me reach the shore. But as I pulled away from the villa and watched the string lights disappear in my rearview mirror, I knew this wasn't over. And neither was I. I didn't check my phone that night. I knew what I'd find: a dozen missed calls, angry voicemails, and maybe one or two desperate texts trying to guilt me into reversing what I'd done. But I wasn't ready to hear it. Not yet. Instead, I drove to a quiet diner on the edge of town, the kind that never closes and doesn't judge you for showing up in dress shoes and a wrinkled shirt at midnight. I sat in a corner booth, ordered coffee I didn't drink, and just breathed. For the first time in a long time, there was no one asking me for anything. No one criticizing the way I dressed, the way I stood, the fact that I wasn't married, or that I didn't call enough. Just the hum of a broken jukebox, and the occasional clang of dishes in the kitchen. The next morning, I finally looked at my phone: 37 missed calls, 6 voicemails, a barrage of texts from my mom, my sister, even my aunt. It was like watching a wildfire spread, starting with smoke, building into flames, and finally collapsing into smoldering ash. My mom's first message was sharp: "Evan, what did you do? The venue is saying your card declined and we're responsible for the bill. Call me." Then Madison: "I cannot believe you would pull something like this on my night. What is wrong with you?" Aunt Deb chimed in, too: "Of course, you're lucky your grandmother isn't alive to see this, Evan. She'd be heartbroken." There was even one from Chase, which shocked me more than anything else. He'd never bothered to speak to me directly before. Real mature, man. "You embarrassed Maddie in front of everyone. Hope it was worth it." But what made my stomach twist, not in guilt, but in a slow, simmering rage, was the last message from my mother. Sent at 3:14 a.m., "You always find a way to ruin things, just like your father." There it was. That sentence, that little knife she always kept tucked away, ready to twist when I didn't play my part. My father had walked out when I was 12. I remember the slammed door, the shouting, the silence afterward. I remembered being the one to hold Madison when she cried. The one who took up a job bagging groceries at 15 because mom was working double shifts and we needed help. I remembered thinking, I'll be different. I'll stay. I'll show up. And I had for years. For every scraped knee, every late night call about a bad date, every school trip they couldn't afford. I'd been the fallback, the fixer, the dependable one. And they had never seen me as anything more than that. I sat there in my apartment, reading those messages again and again. And instead of crying or yelling or throwing my phone across the room like a dramatic movie protagonist, I did something far more dangerous. I started planning. It wasn't about money. It wasn't even about revenge. Not exactly. It was about freedom. About pulling the plug on this twisted little play we'd all been performing for years, where I was the donor and they were the recipients. And I was supposed to smile and say happy to help no matter how deep the cut. The first thing I did was call the venue manager. I apologized for any disruption and explained that I had, in fact, canceled the payment and that any future financial questions should be directed to Madison and Chase. He sounded annoyed but understanding. Apparently he'd seen worse. I thanked him for his professionalism and hung up. Then I logged into my bank accounts and started cutting cords. First, the auto payment for mom's electric bill. Gone. Then the recurring deposit I'd been sending Madison every month for student loan help, even though she dropped out of grad school a year ago. Gone. I called the accountant I use for my freelance business and told him I wanted to revise the trust I'd set up for family emergencies. As of now, the only person who would have access to those funds in a crisis was me. I wasn't being cruel. I wasn't doing anything out of spite. I was simply choosing me for the first time in a long time. The backlash came fast. That evening, Madison called me, finally. Her voice was already high-pitched before I said a word. "Oh, so you're alive now," After you publicly humiliated me in front of everyone I know and left us scrambling to cover a $6,000 bill? I had to put it on my credit card. Evan, do you know how that looks? I let the silence hang in the air too long. I thought I threw off your aesthetic, I said calmly. Didn't want to ruin any more photos. Oh my God, you're actually going to play the victim, she hissed. I asked one thing. No, you asked 100 things, I cut in, voice flat. And I gave you all of them. I paid for things you never said thank you for. I showed up when no one else did. I sat at the kids' table and toasted your happiness with lukewarm water, Madison, and all I got in return was a fake smile and a try not to ruin the vibe. You humiliated me long before I ever handed that envelope to the manager. There was a long pause. Then she tried a different tactic. Mom said you're cutting her off, too. She's been crying all day. She's older now, Evan. She needs support. I know she's older, I said. And I know she's been calling me her retirement plan since I was 20. But I'm not her husband. I'm not Dad. And I'm done being punished for the fact that he left. That ended the call. She hung up on me. 2 days later, I got an email from Chase. Not a call, not even a text, an email titled, "Let's be rational." It was 3 paragraphs of corporate speak, basically trying to convince me to consider the long-term impact of family rifts and offering a proposal where they'd reimburse me for the bracelet over time if I would just release the hold on the payment. He even attached a spreadsheet with a 6-month payment plan. I didn't reply, because that was the moment I realized the tide had shifted. For the first time, they were the ones asking. They were the ones scrambling. And I hadn't even made my next move yet. 3 days passed. No calls, no new emails, just silence. Icy brittle silence. And for once, it didn't bother me. In fact, it was peaceful. I went about my days as if I hadn't just flipped the entire family dynamic on its head. I did my work. I caught up with an old friend over lunch. I even went to the gym, something I hadn't had time for in months because my free hours were always eaten up by some new crisis Madison couldn't handle or some errand my mom insisted only I could run. And then, on a perfectly ordinary Thursday, I got a call from my Aunt Deb. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Evan, she said in a hushed, urgent tone. Can you come over to your mom's? It's important. No, I said simply. If Mom wants to talk, she can call me. There was a long pause. She's not doing well, Deb said slowly. She's been in a mood ever since the party and now at the utilities. Utilities? I repeated. She didn't tell you? Deb sounded genuinely surprised. The electric was shut off yesterday. She thought it was a glitch, but Evan, she's been crying. She says she feels abandoned. I didn't respond right away. I was staring out my window, watching the world move on as if none of this mattered. Finally, I said, she didn't feel abandoned when she let them put me at the kids' table or when she compared me to Dad in the worst way possible. She felt just fine then. Aunt Deb was quiet. Then she dropped her voice even lower and said, look, between you and me, I think she's finally realizing she pushed too far. Madison, too. This thing has stirred everything up. They're starting to see just how much you actually do or did. Funny how they only start seeing it once the money stops, I replied. She didn't argue. That weekend, I drove to the mountains. No cell reception, no emails, no drama. Just the cold wind in my face and the sound of my boots crunching over dry leaves. I stayed 2 nights in a cabin I'd found online. A simple place with firewood stacked by the door and a dusty old radio that only picked up one station. It was perfect. When I came back down the mountain on Sunday afternoon, I turned my phone on. 33 new messages. Apparently, Madison and Chase had held a post-party dinner that weekend, sort of a follow-up for the guests who couldn't attend the main event. It was supposed to be a small, elegant gathering at a bar downtown. But without me footing the bill, it turned into a potluck at their apartment with folding chairs, a sink full of dishes, a centerpiece made of plastic flowers, and a bottle of Barefoot Rose. One guest posted a picture on Instagram with the caption, "From candlelight elegance to Costco chaos, who says romance is dead?" Madison wasn't tagged. I scrolled through more messages. One from my cousin Ashley, who'd always kept her distance from the family drama but had apparently reached a tipping point. Hey Evan, just wanted to say I saw what happened at the party, and I think you were right to walk away. You deserved better. I never said it before, but thanks for always helping when no one else would. Just wanted you to know someone noticed. That one hit me harder than I expected. Still, nothing from my mom. No apology, no explanation until Monday night. I was brushing my teeth when my phone rang. It was her. I let it ring 4 times before I answered. Hi, Mom. Silence. Then, very softly, I didn't know it would go that far. I didn't say anything. I thought you'd come around. You always do. And when you didn't, I didn't know what to do. Her voice cracked. The lights went off. And it was just so quiet. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt sad. Sad that it had to come to this for her to hear the sigh.